Were you a good boy? You were. You staying cool? Yeah, not too hot. Ah, thank you, buddy. We go back home and get you some dinner? Drive home.
Cardiologist, and he told me about Camzyos. He said Camzyos works by targeting what's causing my obstructive HCM. So he prescribed it, and I'm so thankful he did. Camzyos is used to treat adults with
Full self-drive,
obstructive HCM.
so all the way back. Let's see how many interventions we get.
Camzyos may cause serious side effects, including heart failure that can lead to death, a risk that's increased if you develop a serious infection, or irregular heartbeat, or when taking certain other medicines. So do not stop, start, or change medicines or the dose without telling your healthcare provider. You must have echocardiograms.
Well, that was a rather abrupt and late stop for kind of a non-official stop sign that was tucked out of sight. So I've noticed this road, a lot of people will take that first drive, like a lot of manual driving people, and if people will take that first drive, full self-drive will actually follow them and cut that turn back there short. Or makes like a hard left when it should make a soft left.
reminiscent of the first Trump election, where while the UAW leadership said one thing and did one thing, if you go to Detroit, if you go to Romeo, if you go to UAW in Arlington at a GM plant, the oldest in the country since 1954, you see a different
concepts that aim at monitoring black girls. Put them up full mask. You're looking at Mr. Christopher Lowe on the left. This is the principal of Mulberry Memorial Junior and Senior High School. And the superintendent, Greg Myers, on the right. They issued a statement addressing the explosive allegations. Quote, "I can say that we take such allegations very seriously and
What are you
address them in
freaking out
accordance
about
with
now?
our Title VI procedures." End quote. I mean, damn. That is probably, both of you all wrote that statement. That is probably the shortest, weakest, non-statement statement I've read in this. But see, the federal bench has this amazing power that allows for not only the review of records, but the official sworn testimony of you. All right, dear brother, we see what's happening here. We've seen it multiple times. We've reported on this years here. It's beautiful. They're laying on them. They're leaning in. They're trying to get them to give up and to leave, because obviously the rules and the culture are conflicting here. The rule says you can't be bullies and you can't be racist, but the culture obviously is okay with it. Let's see.
I say that
Get over. This is a bad
in
lane change
Massachusetts, which is
that I'm gonna
a lot
have
of
to
times
intervene
the Florida of
here.
the North. Let's get something very clear though. When the 8th grader young student put her hair up in a ponytail, it was definitely an act of aggression.
Okay, so that was a bad lane change. That should have been really easy for this to pull off, which required me to intervene, take control over the wheel, manually change lanes out of a lane which was very clearly marked as exit only. So when I need this thing to get into the middle lane, it won't do it. And when I want it to stay in the middle of the lane, it's changes lanes like no other. It has a mind of its own sometimes, and it doesn't really make sense on why it's making the decisions to get out of a perfectly good lane that's flowing well and no traffic obstructions. right there. I don't understand why it tried to change lanes. I'm in the lane that needs to be going fast. I'm one of the fastest cars in this lane. I'm passing cars and bikes in the middle lane, and Full Self Drive wants to force me in the middle lane where it would have had to just immediately slow down. And so the only way I can interrupt that is to get my hands up here quick enough to disable it and then hit minimal lane changes and hope it won't do it, but it probably will do it in a number of minutes later. So I almost wish there was like a more aggressive disable the lane changes and lock them out unless they're absolutely required for navigation.
Roughly 15 microaggression expressions, from disdain to contempt to mock awe to I'm thinking, I'm pondering. All of the theatrics. You ever seen the black and white pictures of Hitler, you know, where he's doing his poses in Berlin before he became an orator? You can see the expressions of studied plastic disdain or presidential empathy. Kamala is a dangerous woman.
Put up the picture full mask. So I'm pretty sure you're on crack cocaine. All right, different. Mega pastor has likened VP Kamala Harris to Hitler. Says she uses the god-awful microaggressions. Sir, the way you talk to your wives is not the way you judge a presidential candidate. And by the looks of it, Lance, you deserve those damn microaggressions that you get at home, sir. All right, dear brother, thoughts?
I think that your statement pretty much summed it up. I do also thank Lance for counting the amount of microaggression statements that were made. He said it was 21. I wonder if he counts President Trump's microaggressive and over-aggressive and just statements in general and see how many of those are getting made. If we're keeping tit for tat, let's keep the tats the same we keep the tits. And as far as Lance, honestly, I believe that guy. Why not? You know, I believe him. Who knows? Maybe he's right. Maybe that guy with his little pose, right, that one trending right now. This should be a dance move on TikTok. Who knows?
Yeah. I'm just waiting for VP Harris to call somebody a mother. I'm waiting.
It's coming. It's been soon. You saw the almost slip.
Almost.
Welcome back, one and all, to another episode of The Damage with me, John Arola, and a blast from the not too distant past. JR Jackson, host of The Watch List, is here. JR, how's it going?
What's going on? What's going on? Can you guys hear me? Is my mic muted? Is everything okay? You guys got me?
I can hear you.
What's going on? Is it Wednesday? Oh, no,
it isn't Wednesday, but we're going to have a little bit of that big news Tuesday vibe going on. By the way, I have started to, when I shoot from home, accidentally mute myself. So your legacy lives on. Don't worry about that. I like to hold onto the mic to emphasize a point, and every single time I do that, I mute it. So that's not good.
It gets emphasized.
It did, yeah. everybody focuses on what I had been saying because they can't hear what I'm saying after that. So anyway, Jared's back, everyone. The watch list lives on. I sometimes see messages from people like, oh, I missed the watch list. And I'm like, what do you mean you missed the watch list? Go watch the watch list right now.
What are we doing here? What are we doing,
Go watch it.
Yeah, check us out.
Watch the watch list.
Watch list TYT. You can catch, of course, YouTube, the Facebooks. I think even on the Snaps. So spread all far and wide. Of course, check us out. Primarily, you see a lot of the things we hit up. During that, we do some lives. We do some standard clips where we break down things in a detailed way that I don't get to do as quickly as I can on a live. But the lives are also fun as well, you guys. We come in, we chat, we talk. Many times it's about the debates or someone's press conference or something else ridiculous going on in this race. But we definitely still have a good time. I do want to let you guys know soonish enough, because as I've settled into these new surroundings, I want to have some more folks on where we have more discussions in those lives, because come on, you guys, I'm too much of a loudmouth to be talking to myself all the time. Come on, that's why I'm back here to talk to you, John. Good to see you guys.
I hope to be one of those people brought onto the lives. That'd be cool.
Let's do that.
And I like the little lighting you got going on in the back in the home studio. That's cool. I like it.
I can change it.
Everyone out there, before we jump into the politics, I do want to let you know, before we went live with this show, JR and I briefly talked about football as a joke. I was pranking him. And then, although I do love football, and then we talked about wrestling, which we don't, because you're not in the studio anymore, we don't get to talk as much about wrestling. And like, I am really fighting the urge to just set fire to our rundown and just talk about what's been going on in WWE, which I'm sure 3 to 4% of you would be very excited about, and the rest would not, so I won't do it. But anyway, what we will talk about is Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. No, what we're going to talk about is politics. There's some updates on the attempt on Donald Trump's life over the weekend. The right has taken a tragedy, an actual tragedy, not just that event, but that this has become normalized is a tragedy, and they've decided to be as dishonest as possible about it and to try to use it to win the election, and so we're going to have to respond to some of that. We got Laura Loomer addressing some of the accusations going around on the internet, so we're going to get into some of that. It's provocative and at times gross stuff, so that's going to be fun. And Mike Johnson has found himself in exactly the position he doesn't want to be in, and I love it. So we'll be talking about that as well. There's so much going on, so everyone buckle up, send us your comments, your tweets, your super chats. There's no Blue Apron gift cards going around this week, but send them regardless. Oh, and quick note, I want to fact check myself from yesterday. I had said that our members hangout was going to be this Thursday. I'm not going to be here on Thursday and Friday. I had forgotten. So we're going to be doing it the following week. So apologies to everyone, which means you have one more week to sign up for a Tier 3 membership on YouTube and get access to a monthly hangout.
John,
point rate cut, and like Paul Volcker, a big feat to step into, but definitely Powell's hero. He defied Wall Street and did what he thought was best based on what's happening in the economy. Several meetings ago, he was asked whether September was too close to the election, and he said, I am not being political. Every single meeting is and will.
Reports this, that Democrats are, quote, hoping that Kamala Harris will win in November and they'll flip the House too, meaning it would likely be Hakeem Jeffries holding the Speaker's gavel as the process of certifying a Harris victory gets underway. It's another scenario that is nagging top House Democrats, that Speaker Mike Johnson might keep his majority as Harris wins and finds himself in a position where he could obstruct the counting of electoral votes and possibly throw the election to the House under the constitutional provisions of the 12th Amendment. Johnson, after all, led House Republicans in filing an amicus brief after the 2020 election, asking the Supreme Court to essentially overturn swing state results. Now, he's leading a charge suggesting that undocumented immigrants are voting en masse in what Democrats view as a coordinated effort to sow doubt in the election and lay the groundwork for mischief. Officials bracing for the worst and preparing to defend the way our democracy functions before, during, and after the 2024 presidential election is where we start. In a moment, we'll be joined by the Colorado Secretary of State, Janet Griswold, and voting rights attorney, Mark Elias. But we start with New York Times reporter Nick Corsiniti, who's been on this beat.
I grant you that. But how do you think that sort of resonates with people? Because that seemed to be the seesaw the markets are on.
that because of these two attacks, it's pretty strong evidence that the left needs to tone it down. I don't understand the logic there. I don't know why two Republicans trying to take out a Republican is evidence that the left has to do anything. I constantly tell people not to engage in political violence. The issue here is that those Republicans are unlikely to be watching my content, but they might be watching yours. Maybe they listen to like Ted Cruz's podcast. Maybe they listen to Ben Shapiro. Maybe those sorts of people can stop encouraging people to lust for the blood of their political opponents. I also love his reference to someone is going to be hurt. Jesus, I mean, I know it's been a month or whatever, but a person already died during the first attempt, and that's how fast JD Vance forgot about that. That was quick. And I love when he's like, over the last two, no one has tried to kill Kamala Harris over the last few months. Well, that's a strong position you're coming from rhetorically, where you have to put the bounds temporally on it in that particular way. And that's because they know that there have been attempted assassins where people on their side have decided not to go after Donald Trump, but instead have gone after Democrats, like in the attack on Nancy Pelosi. Bear in mind, virtually everyone on the right was laughing uproariously over the fact that Paul Pelosi's skull was cracked open, including the family members of Donald Trump, including Donald Trump himself. And so this entire thing, like him saying, I will do my part, JR, to take down the toner of the rhetoric, he is in the middle of a multi-week conspiracy theory fest of trying to get people worked into a frenzy about migrants committing fictional crimes in Springfield. So I don't know, maybe we could start there in terms of doing your part and taking down the tone.
Exactly my point. No, exactly my point. Because look, he said, I'm going to do my part. So if that, it sounds like an admission that you're doing something wrong as far as your rhetoric. As far as things that you're saying about folks that are in opposition to you, what are those parts? There's no specifics on those. Instead, it's a made-up line about how people are then saying they need to eliminate Donald Trump. Again, like you said, who said that? Because again, he has been talking about going after, or at least this scourge of illegal immigrants in the city of Springfield, Ohio, which of course is also a lie as well. So he's pushing this lie constantly, even admitted, as we've seen, I'm sure you covered this as well, admitted, I just make these things up so you guys can talk about it, so that I can then make my final point, which is these immigrants are destroying our lives. No details of how they're destroying your lives, because there's issues in that city that don't have anything to do with these kinds of immigrants, just an influx of people. So we have to eliminate those things, because his major point is those others, they don't belong in this country. You know who really belongs in this country? Lily white folks that look and sound like me, even though many of them don't. Those are the real Americans. That's why there's things like the Real America's Voice, actual Americans, bring us back to where we used to be. There's a differentiation they have between who we are now and what they want us to be. And many of those folks don't vibe with what they want. So what part of your rhetoric, JD, is that you need to change? They never get to that because there's nothing actually wrong with them. They want to say, I'm trying to meet you guys in the middle. When? How? Where? Because your boss, the guy that you're the running mate of, he's talking about savages. He said they're coming for your daughters to rape and sodomize them. What kind of language is that?
Yeah.
And by the way, as this city's had to shut down hospitals and schools, elementary schools, and I think even a university or a college in the area has to shut down over these threats.